Chapter 3. The Mirror. I walked slowly to the car and got in. Uncle Jake started the car and began driving. Then he said quietly,
"So what happened, Mark?"
Uncle Jake's voice kind of calmed me down. I thought he would be mad at me, but instead, it seemed like he was just trying to understand what happened. I threw a papier-mâché pumpkin at Nathan James. It hit him in the face, then it hit Miss Carpenter in the face. Uncle Jake kind of smiled. I didn't expect that. And then he said,
"I know that part, Mark. The principal already told me. What I'm asking is, why did that happen? Why did you do it?"
Because Nathan is annoying. Really annoying.
"So, do you throw a papier-mâché pumpkin at every person that annoys you?"
He asked. No, I don't. I said back.
"Then what made you do it this time?"
He kept calling me plate face.
Plate face?
Yes, plate face. Uncle Jake laughed. He laughed. It's not funny, I told him.
"It's kind of funny,"
he said. I don't look like a plate, I told Uncle Jake.
"You do have a pretty round face,"
Uncle Jake said. No, I don't, I told him. And when I told him this, I have to admit, I was kind of yelling. I was really mad. Really mad.
"Rounder than most faces, I mean. You've seen your face, right? In a mirror?"
Uncle Jake asked me, still laughing a little bit. I couldn't believe this. Uncle Jake was agreeing with Nathan James and saying I actually was a plate face. Tears started to flow down my face again. I could feel my blood begin to boil. Yes, I've seen my face in a mirror before, and I don't look like a plate, I yelled. I couldn't stop myself from screaming. It was like the whole world was against me, even my hero, Uncle Jake. Suddenly, Uncle Jake pulled the car over to the side of the road, put it into park, and said,
"Look at your face right now and tell me what you see."
Then he flipped down the visor of the car and pointed the mirror at my face. I looked in the mirror. I don't see a plate face, I barked at Uncle Jake.
"Okay. Then what do you see?"
he asked. I sat and looked at myself. My face didn't look like a plate, but it was bright red. My cheeks were covered in tears. My nose even had slime running out of it.
"What do you see? Really? Look at yourself and tell me what you see."
Uncle Jake asked again. I looked at myself. The tears, the runny nose, the red face. I knew exactly what I looked like. So I told Uncle Jake. A baby. I look like a big baby. Uncle Jake smiled and nodded.
"And why do you think you look like a big baby?"
I knew exactly where Uncle Jake was going with that question. And I knew exactly what the answer was. So I told him, because I'm acting like one. Uncle Jake nodded his head.
"I'd say that's a pretty good answer. What does a baby act like?"
Well, they get mad and frustrated, and they scream and cry and throw things.
Ah, yes. They get frustrated, and they scream, and they cry, and throw things. That sounds familiar.
Uncle Jake said, with a knowing look on his face.
But do you know why they do that?
Because they get mad or frustrated?
But everyone gets mad and frustrated. Those are called emotions. Anger, sadness, frustration. And there are good emotions too, like happiness and excitement. But here's the thing. Babies can't control their emotions. They don't know how. So they scream and cry. And that's what you just did. You acted like a baby. Warriors have to keep control over their emotions, especially over something as silly as someone calling you a name.
Well, I realized there were a lot of other things I needed to tell Uncle Jake. You see, it wasn't just Nathan James who was making me frustrated. There were a bunch of things that had been bothering me, and I was just starting to realize it. But I didn't know how to tell Uncle Jake.
Well, what?
Uncle Jake asked. I didn't know how to explain everything in a way that would make sense.
You just what?
There are some other things that are bothering me too.
Like what?
Uncle Jake asked. I wondered if I should tell Uncle Jake, but I figured that since he helped me last summer, maybe he can help me this summer too.
Just tell me.
Uncle Jake said. Okay, here it goes. The first thing that is bothering me is this summer. I was ready for a nice summer, a break from school, hanging out with my friends, and being able to do some workouts with you. But a bunch of things happened. And now it seems like summer is ruined. First of all, I have to go to a dumb camp this summer. Only it isn't even a camp. It isn't even camping. It's just in the recreation center. And we're supposed to be doing physical education and also reviewing math and spelling and a bunch of other school stuff. So it's basically school in the summertime. And if that isn't bad enough, it turns out that Nathan James is doing it too. The one kid I despise. It would be a little better if I had a new bike to get there. But my mom won't get me a new bike. I even took her to the bike shop to see the best bike ever. The Bentley. I thought that maybe when she saw it in all of its beauty, she would get it for me. Nope. She has no soul.
So that's it? The camp and a bike, and that's why you think this summer will be awful? Because you have to go to camp and your mom won't buy you a new bike?
There was one more thing, only I was very afraid to tell Uncle Jake about it. But once again, I figured that if I didn't tell him, then he couldn't help me, so I told him. It's jujitsu.
Jujitsu? I thought you liked jujitsu.
I do. I have fun at jujitsu, and I really like it.
So what's the problem?
Asked Uncle Jake. The problem is that my coach wants me to compete in a tournament.
Why is that a problem?
Because I don't want to.
Why?
Because.
Because?
Yes, Uncle Jake, because. Just because. I don't want to. Uncle Jake sat for a minute, quietly. Then he said,
So, you have to go to camp. You don't like Nathan, you want a new bike, and you need to compete in jiu-jitsu. Those are the problems that you think will ruin your summer.
I don't think they will ruin my summer. They already are ruining my summer. Look at me. I pointed at myself in the mirror. I wasn't crying anymore. But you could still tell that I was upset. Uncle Jake nodded and then sat quietly for a minute.
Well?
He finally said,
Do you remember all the problems you overcame last summer?
Of course I do, Uncle Jake.
Well, these are all problems that many people have. And these are problems you can overcome too. But they are not going to be easy to overcome. In order to overcome these problems, you're going to have to use what you already know about being a warrior kid. But you are going to have to do even more. It will be hard work, and it will test you in different ways than pull-ups and swimming and studying did. These will test your mind, your emotions, and your discipline. But if you pass the test, these problems will be solved. And this will be the best summer ever. Are you willing to be put to the test, Mark?
I quickly remembered the early wake-ups, lots of studying, and crazy exercising I did the last time Uncle Jake helped me solve my problems. But I also remembered overcoming all those problems and becoming faster, stronger, and smarter than I was before. And that felt good. Yes, Uncle Jake. I am ready, and I am willing.
Okay then, Mark. Let's head home. We'll go from there.
Uncle Jake got that strange smile on his face that I hadn't seen since he left. It looked like he was going to enjoy this. I just wasn't sure I would feel the same way. Chapter 4. My Problems. Uncle Jake is definitely back for the summer. He woke me up this morning at 0:30, and we went down to the garage and did a workout. I must admit, it is a lot more fun working out with Uncle Jake now that I am stronger. We did pull-ups, push-ups, sit-ups, and jumping jacks. Even though I wasn't doing as many of the exercises as Uncle Jake, he still told me I did a good job. That made me feel awesome, because I worked out through the whole school year. I stayed a warrior kid for almost the whole school year. I say almost because there were some days when I was too tired or too busy to work out, so I skipped a day or two. But my rule was to never miss 3 days in a row of working out, and I didn't. My eating was pretty good too, although there was a time when my mom and dad were working a lot and getting home late every night. I have to admit that I had mint chocolate chip ice cream for dinner 3 nights in a row. Oops! But also, After that 3rd day, I didn't eat dessert for 2 weeks. Once we finished our workout, we got changed and sat down for some breakfast. Uncle Jake told me that he had told my mom about me being sent to the principal's office and then home from school. I figured that was it. My summer was over. What did she say? I asked him, expecting the worst.
She wasn't happy. She wanted to ground you for a long time. But I told her I would take care of it. So you owe me.
Thanks, I said, but then I wondered what that meant. So I asked him, wait, what do I owe you?
Well, I told her about some of these problems you're having. And I told her I would make sure they got fixed.
Yes, I thought to myself. Now I am set. Uncle Jake is going to fix everything. He will get me out of that stupid camp, teach me how to deal with Nathan, get me out of the jiu-jitsu tournament, and buy me a new bike. Thanks, Uncle Jake, I said. I knew you'd fix everything. But he didn't say, you're welcome, or no problem, or anything. Instead, he just sat there and looked at me. Then after a minute, he said,
I'm not going to fix anything. You are.
I should have known there would be a catch. And I was right. There it was, and it didn't make any sense. Uncle Jake, I can't fix these problems. Nathan is mean, and there's nothing I can do about it. My mom already signed me up for camp, and she said I have to go. And I can't get a new bike because I have no money. And my jiu-jitsu instructor is making me do the tournament. So even though I would love to solve these problems, I can't because the problems aren't mine. Uncle Jake listened and nodded his head, as if he already knew everything I was saying. Then he spoke.
Actually, the problems are yours. In fact, you are the problem. We aren't going to change the problems. We are going to change your attitude.
This made no sense to me at all. These problems weren't my fault. I didn't have any idea how my attitude was going to change them. So I asked Uncle Jake, very bluntly, how can my attitude get me a new bike? How can my attitude get me out of summer camp? How can my attitude make Nathan a nice person? And how can my attitude get me out of a jiu-jitsu tournament? Uncle Jake took a breath before he spoke.
Well, Mark, your attitude actually changes everything. Especially things you don't think you can change. Look at how you're blaming everyone else for your problems. If you don't think the problems are yours, how can you solve them?
But how can? I started to say.
You can't. If you think that every problem you have is someone else's, then how can you ever get them fixed? By sitting around and waiting for other people to change or waiting for other people to act? You might be waiting for a really long time. But if you look at a problem from a different perspective, a perspective where the problem is actually your fault, then you can do something to fix it.
Yeah, but sometimes there's really nothing I can do. Nothing. Like summer camp. I'm going. My mom said there was no question about it. But I don't want to. At all.
Okay, then. You know it is definitely going to happen, so we will look at your attitude toward the summer camp and go from there.
I think it's pretty clear what my attitude is. I don't want to go. I told Uncle Jake, my voice getting louder.
I get that. And I also see that you're getting emotional again, so calm down. If you're getting emotional, then you have to recognize that and start to calm yourself down. Warriors don't lose their tempers. So get yours under control. Take a breath, think about something else. Think about something more important than this little summer camp.
It's not little to me. It's my whole summer. I told Uncle Jake, trying to stay calm, but not really doing a good job of it.
I get that. I get that all these things seem like big, horrible problems to you, and that's okay. I get it. But warriors have to deal with problems all the time on the battlefield. And they can't just sit around and wait for someone else to fix them. They have to fix the problems themselves. And you have to fix these problems, because no one else is going to fix them for you. And the number one thing you are going to do to get these problems fixed is fix your attitude. Understand?
I didn't know what to say because I actually didn't understand. So I told him, not really.
Well, you will understand, Mark. You will.